Good evening. I will now call this meeting to order. Our first order of business tonight is to adopt the agenda for the meeting. Commissioners, is there a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Move to adopt the final agenda, please.
Motion,
I'll second.
a motion made by Commissioner Pedersen, second by Commissioner Ream. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next order of business is to adopt the minutes from the December 19th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Commissioners, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
A motion made by Commissioner Sikora, second by Commissioner Macias. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. We'll now move on to our discussion items. Our first item for discussion and action tonight is item 3.1, consider an amendment to the Marsh Hollow PUD ordinance. This item does include a public hearing. I will now turn it over to Associate Planner Will Boucher for a staff presentation, and then I will open the public hearing for those in the chamber this evening that wish to speak on the request.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Tonight we have a request for a PUD amendment for the Marsh Hollow development from Civil Site Group. When final plat for third edition was approved for 55 townhomes, a PUD amendment was not requested or anticipated based on development plans, but during the building permit phase, staff noticed that the patios included did not meet setback requirements with the per R3 zoning district. As such, it will necessitate a PUD amendment. Staff also found that during the building permit review that we need to modify the building separation requirement of the PUD for a few homes that were angled that actually do not meet the 30-foot rear yard setback. Applicant has also requested a consideration of a cantilever deck on some of the units. Planning Commission and City Council approved the Marsh Hollow preliminary plat back in 2021. Final plat for the first edition was approved in 2022, and the latest final plat for Marsh Hollow third, that was approved in 2023 of October. On the screen, you can see just some circled areas where this amendment will come into play. In the rear portion of the homes over here with the two red circles, we notice that that is where they're hoping to put in the patios. That way people can just enjoy the amenities of their home. On the other two pictures, we see the angled of the townhomes, which will require the PUD amendment for the 30-yard setback. Those are encroaching into it. We have one here for 28.3 feet. And another one for 21.9. That is where we're hoping to reduce the setback requirement from 30 feet from building separation to 20. That way they'll be able to meet this requirement. These requests are fairly common in developments in Victoria. Right here, here's one where we can actually see the patios in the rear yard. So we have done this in the past, allowing townhomes to have patios. We're just asking for that here as well. And then here's an example of a development in town with cantilever decks. City code does provide a provision that allows for a 3-foot encroachment if the decks don't have any pillars or any columns supporting them. The cantilever decks proposed by Civil Site Group will be as such, where they will not have any type of pillar or any support. They are asking for a 6-foot encroachment instead of the 3-foot allowed by code, allowing just residents to have more amenity and a spacious full deck for them to enjoy. And that will be on overlooking their driveway for the rear facing house. All right, so items in black are the PUD standards currently listed in the Marsh Hollow PUD that was approved for the third edition. You can see the proposed amendment regulations in blue, including the reduction to the rear building separation requirement, the private drive setback reduction for the cantilever decks and balconies, and the patio setback reductions. And for the reduction here for the private backup drive, that is only going to be for the 14-foot from the balcony for the second floor. On the first level where people will be driving in, that will still be the 20-foot, so that will not be changing. Just adding a provision to allow the cantilever balconies. Public hearing for this was posted in the Chanhassen Villager on December 21st, 2023. This has also been published in our city webpage and put in the monitor out in the lobby. We have also sent out public notification or mailed notices to anyone 350 way to the adjacent properties. So staff is recommending holding a public hearing on this request because it is an amendment to a PUD, so that is what we are required to do. And we recommend the City Council adopt the ordinance amending the ordinance number 456 ZC, allowing patios and balconies for the townhomes in Marsh Hollow 3rd. And those are the sample motions right there on the screen. Staff and the developers are in audience tonight to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Well, I will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the chambers this evening who would wish to comment on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Ream, second by Commissioner Pedersen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is closed. I will now open the floor for the Planning Commission to discuss. Commissioners, are there any questions or comments?
Can I seek a clarification? So there's the patio, the spacing between the two houses in the corners. That was originally designed that way, and it seems like it was identified now as. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yep. Are you talking about the spaces in between?
Yeah,
the two
particularly the 21, the upper left corner.
Yep.
So it was as planned. Is it because there's a proposed patio to be put there that it's getting closer now? Or?
So per our city code, decks, specifically decks, adopt the same setback standards as the home. Patios do not. They actually have their own zoning setback requirements in the R3 residential district. That is 10 feet a rear yard setback and a 5-foot side yard setback. These setbacks and the patios themselves won't affect the actual townhome separations. We don't consider that from the staff level to be part of the actual foundation of the structure. So the patios aren't, we aren't measuring from the patios or the side of the patios to the other homes in general. But when, for the 3rd edition PUD, this was approved and as staff was reviewing that, we now noticed seeing this on here. So we're asking for this PUD amendment. That way we are able to get their building permits and get this, which was originally approved back in October from City Council.
Necessity. Okay. Yep.
Basically, in R3, patios don't require foundations, decks do require foundations.
Yep, we actually make that notice in the coded language itself. So they actually made a deck that actually structured with the foundations and footings. We would consider that part of the actual structure. Patios, since it's just going to be a concrete slab being poured on there, we aren't seeing that. Instead, we have our own setback standards, which is 10 feet from the rear yard property line.
My only question is about the outlot and the patios and who owns that and what legal ramifications are possible when, and I say when, the owners start moving their stuff into the outlot.
The developers are with us tonight, so hopefully they'd be able to help answer that question.
Commissioners, my name is Matt Pavick with Civil Site Group, the engineer on the project. Those outlots, some of them are homeowner association maintained, and others are city owned for like the wetland areas. So I'd have to look and see which ones you're referring to exactly. But there are conservation areas that are part of those city owned outlots as well that are well signed that are going to, the signs will be there before people move in, which we think is a helpful tool to address that concern.
The outlot E is actually a city, that's actually a street.
Oh,
That's owned by the HOA. And the
Gotcha.
That's showing the patios. The decks, I guess I should say, not the patios, the decks, I believe.
well, that helps. Thank you, Commissioner Kuhn.
Am I
I thought
correct
those were-
on that?
I thought those were patios just button up to one another.
Those are actually the decks going out to the street.
Yeah, those are the elevated balcony type
The-
style.
You go to
Not
that photo.
Yeah.
That-
Well, then it's not an issue for this picture.
So what's, I guess, code, how, is 6 feet too far? I mean, without footings, without posts, or what's,
City Planner Brian McCann, he actually is messaging us now. So he's saying that the encroachment on their own property within the cantilevers. So the encroachment of the cantilevers would just be on their own property. They wouldn't be encroaching into any type of city right of way or anything like that. It would just be overhanging their own property. So it wouldn't be affecting the city, and it shouldn't be affecting any of their neighbors. He also mentioned that some of the outlots are private drives, which the applicant would maintain themselves, and it wouldn't be the city responsibility.
I just thought outlot E was a berm. So that's where it's all answered. Commissioner Kuhn got it for me.
I guess I'm trying to figure out code-wise, how far you can build a deck without putting footings.
That would be more of a question for the building official themselves. Code-wise, we're just more looking at what the actual setback is in place per the code, and that was for the patios, 10 feet here. As for the actual foundation, I don't believe that should be any type of,
I'm talking about the decks.
yeah, the decks, I don't think that's any issue. And you'd have to be,
That would be designed by the builder, and they're cantilevered, so they're just structurally designed to be out 6 feet. And it goes through the building permit review process for structural on that.
I'm just,
How far can you go with a cantilevered deck before it rips off?
well, right, but
Yeah,
I'm
it just
also,
has to do with the structure, the size of the beams and stuff that you.
I'm also wondering, are we opening another can of worms by allowing it here down the road? Are we gonna open something else up that somebody else says, well, you did it here, we can do it here, versus,
And I could point out, it is already done in another project right here in town with a similar cantilever deck over the driveway, just right off of 5, the Whispering Hills development. It's the same condition, same size decks and stuff.
those are 3
that's
foot
all.
decks.
Those are 6.
Are they 6?
Yep.
Somebody else laid the precedent down.
And so how was it approved in the circumstance of Whispering Hills? Do you have the history, or do you
It
happen
wasn't
to?
one of the projects.
I wasn't
just
part of
know
that project, so
Okay.
we'd have to go back and take a peek at that staff report.
And I wasn't here when I was
Yeah,
here.
so there
but
would have been an approval
mean-
process then.
Are there any issues with having 6 feet versus 3 feet on a cantilevered deck hanging over a garage? I mean, is there clearance issues, snow removal issues? I'm just trying to come up with anything where a homeowner's gonna move in and be like, this is not what I wanted.
That's up to the homeowner, but utilities would probably be, are the utilities in the front of the house, or,
They're both. Some come in the front, some come in the back.
okay.
But the cantilevered deck doesn't span the entire width of the unit. So there's, utilities and things that come under it or go to the side of it into the
So are they
units.
6 foot by 6 foot, 6 foot by 8?
Yeah, it's like
10?
six, I think they're about 6 by 8.
Trying to think
And they're not real big. I mean, if you can imagine, it's this.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not-
You got your patio door, maybe 2 feet on each side.
Yeah.
6 feet out.
And they're up in the
Was
air,
it in
a
the
full
same-
story. So there's plenty of clearance. It's not a low hanging balcony or anything like that.
What would the height underneath it be?
I don't know off the top of my head. It would be probably a standard, garage door
Garage
plus
door.
structure. It's going to
Probably
be
10 or 12.
yeah, something like that.
Could you show the photo? There was a photo in the deck. Yeah.
Yep. The photo right there, that would be the 3-foot cantilevers. I did also want to mention to the Planning Commission that this design was brought to the development review team with all staff members, and we didn't receive any comment of issues from either the Public Works Department or the Building Department for their intentions.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Just looking at this visually, were those sliding doors built into the original design without a deck? Or are the sliding doors that go to the deck a new design proposal?
So the history is that this product changed, which is why it was replatted. There was a different builder that came in. So that's the origin of where some of these changes are coming from. So now that we have that, we're fitting this product onto those lots, and this is what they have. So, and these, I believe, the picture is 6 feet. Those are 6-foot cantilevers in the picture.
Yeah, it's enough for a table
Table
for
and
two.
chairs. Yeah. So it'll look exactly like that.
What do you guys think?
I got nothing.
Okay, so I will bring the sample motion for you guys back on screen.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the city council adopt the resolution approving the summary publication of what we put together. Does that make sense?
The first one, the second one. That was the second.
Correct. Yeah.
You want me to read it all again?
I got you.
There's 2 motions there.
Motion to recommend the city council adopt the ordinance amending the PUD for Marsh Hollow 3rd edition, and move to recommend the city council adopt the resolution approving summary publication. Did it all in one.
I'll second that motion.
I got a motion made by Commissioner Pedersen, second by Commissioner Sikora. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The motion
you.
carries.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Our second item for discussion this evening is item 3.2, Victoria South Residential Development Sketch Plat. Sketch plat review is the initial stage of the review that the Planning Commission reviews and considers regarding the development proposal. There are no formal actions or recommendations taken by the Planning Commission at this time of the sketch plat review. The sketch plat review process is intended for the application to receive initial feedback from the Planning Commission and City Council in advance of any necessary preliminary plat or rezoning applications. I will now turn it over to Community and Economic Development Director Jen Brewington for a staff presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight we have a sketch plat request from Civil Site Group for a new residential development in our South Growth area titled Victoria South. The applicant is requesting feedback from the Planning Commission this evening and from the City Council at their regular meeting on January 22nd. As a reminder, for all, no motions, approvals, or actions are going to be taken this evening. This process is simply just to provide guidance and consideration to the applicant for any future submittals. The project site is approximately 24 acres and is located in our South Growth area with access to Highway 11, Victoria Drive to the east. The property is currently within Laketown Township and is also adjacent to the railroad on the north side of the site. Both propose a 140 unit apartment building with an exterior and interior parking. but there are two options that differ between 126 and 134 townhomes. I just want to note real quick that typically we don't see two proposals during the sketch plat, but this proposal is really setting the tone for our South Growth area. So we've really been working closely with the developer on the vision for the city, the vision for that area, and what the city council wants to see as we start discussing our South Growth. The property is currently farmland, and it has barns and dwellings on site accessed with a gravel drive from Victoria Drive. Chaska Creek runs through the northeast corner, and there are wooded areas and wetlands present as shown on the screen in the purple and yellow portions. The 2040 comprehensive plan designates the property for high-density residential and open space purposes. So high-density zoning mandates a range of 12 to 36 units per acre, accommodating diverse housing options such as townhomes, row homes, apartments, condos, and senior housing. And additionally, this density permits building structure with a height range from 3 to 5 stories. This proposal marks the initial development phase of the South Growth area, encompassing substantial land to the south allocated for commercial and flex employment purposes. So in order to gain a comprehensive understanding of how this area fits in with the Victoria South proposal, the applicant has actually supplied a ghost plat showing how the future areas could be laid out. So on the screen here is the ghost plat that's displayed. It features diverse commercial and employment uses. It also makes use of the road network with multiple connections to Highway 10 and 11. And the Planning Commission should take this layout into consideration when deliberating on the sketch plat this evening. So this is the area that we're gonna hopefully have more of that commercial retail area within our South Growth. So as we continue these conversations, keep in the back of your mind the buffering between that residential component and the commercial too as we move forward with this. So as previously noted, the property currently falls under Lake Township jurisdiction, requiring annexation. Therefore, it will be automatically assigned as an agricultural zoning classification, requiring subsequent rezoning. The applicant has suggested a planned unit development, a PUD, with an underlying R4 zoning designation to facilitate the high-density development. And under the R4 district, both townhomes and apartments are permitted uses. Additionally, the presence of the Chaska Creek in the northeast corner necessitates consideration of a shoreland overlay district, and given that portion of the site lies within 300 feet of the creek. All right, so here is a preliminary concept that we've labeled option A. It features a 144-unit apartment building situated in the southeast portion of the site, while the remaining areas are designated for 126 townhomes. The public road network comprises of a collector starting from Victoria Drive, looping around to the south, and branching into 2 public roads to provide access to the townhomes. One of these roads includes a mini roundabout, while the other incorporates a lengthy cul-de-sac. This arrangement also facilitates diverse trail and neighborhood connections across the site, encompassing regional trails highlighted in blue, neighborhoods that link spanning the railroad and extending to the prospective growth areas in the south, and pedestrian sidewalks lining the public roads. The applicant has also designated space for scenic overlooks and suggested a future park area bordered by wetlands on the adjacent site to the south. The applicant is also proposing a centrally located clubhouse on the site featuring a playground, pool, and fireplace. And additionally, the proposed apartment building includes amenities like a tot lot and a dog park for the residents. Option B presents an alternative road arrangement and includes 8 additional townhomes. In this layout, a 40-foot wide public right-of-way forms a loop around the site, and the townhomes would have direct access to this public loop, creating an expanded area for shared green space, enhancing the spacious setting of the development. Presented here is a cross-section of the envisioned 40-foot right-of-way, accommodating sidewalks on a single side of the street, with 10 feet allocated on both sides for utilities and boulevard trees. Like option A, a connectivity plan has been supplied to illustrate how the site functions with pedestrian connections, different trail networks. And as evident in this plan, there are increased opportunities for walking, complemented by the presence of the open green space. This plan encompasses amenities to option A, featuring a dog park, pedestrian overlook, clubhouse, playground, tot lot, and the proposed parkland within an amphitheater to the south. Presented here are some renderings of the planned clubhouse, complete with patio seating, a pool, and a fitness room. Another note, there is some optimism among staff that this facility could serve as a suitable polling location for prospective residents in our South Growth area in the future. Provided here is an architectural illustration of the townhomes, each equipped with a 2-stall garage and showcasing modern structures in neutral colors. And here are some recent projects by Real Estate Equities. This is the group that is proposing the affordable housing project, the building. So in July in 2023, they presented to the City Council offering an overview of affordable housing, their product type, and what affordable housing could look like in the city of Victoria. Here are just some internal finishes of those products. And the apartment building does remain consistent in both options with the affordable housing component. Option A, again, features 126 townhomes resembling the private drives in the Whispering Hills neighborhood, connecting to a mini roundabout and an extended cul-de-sac. On the other hand, option B incorporates 134 townhomes and offers a 40-foot wide public right-of-way along with enhanced amenities and additional green space. A parking assessment was carried out for both proposals. The apartment building would need a total of 288 stalls, with 144 of them being enclosed. The applicant is suggesting 273 total stalls, including 129 enclosed ones, resulting in a shortfall of about 15 enclosed stalls. It's anticipated that the applicant would pursue a PUD deviation to address this deficiency with the parking. And then for the townhomes, they will fulfill requirements in either option presented due to the inclusion of the 2-stall garages per unit. So this development will be subject to diverse landscaping standards, encompassing boulevard trees and foundation plantings around the townhomes and apartment building. A buffer is mandated along Highway 11, and the Planning Commission should contemplate buffers to the north along the railroad and to the south for future commercial flex employment areas. Additionally, a minimum of 25% open space for the entire development is required, with an extra tree and shrub to be planted for every 1,000 square feet of open space. The northeastern section of the site falls under the Shoreline Overlay District, given to its location to the Chaska Creek within 300 feet. Therefore, this does mandate a minimum of 50% open space for this segment of the development, along with a maximum of 25% impervious surfacing and a tier analysis to establish density requirements. These details will undergo an in-depth examination during the preliminary process and could potentially require a variance for the density piece. Regarding the parkland dedication, the future area to the south should be excluded from consideration as it is currently off-site of their plan. However, the applicant is required to provide 6.24 acres in option A or 6.45 acres in option B due to the number of townhome units. And alternatively, the applicant has the option to offer a cash fee in lieu of land, or a combination of both land and cash is available if desired. And the Parks and Recreation Committee will assess this request during their meeting on January 17th. The development does have access considerations along Victoria Drive and 11, with plans for the future access to the south for flex commercial development. And then the internal site circulation is facilitated through networks of drives and walkways. And notably in option B, there is a modification to the sidewalk layout, reducing it to one side of the street. So some street information from our city engineer. So Street B is meant to be a collector road serving both this and the southern parcel, meeting the city collector standards. Access to County Road 11 follows the corridor study with a right in and right out setup and full access to the south. Option A has more private and less connection, while option B has more public streets and better connection and less space for infrastructure. This limited space could make future repairs tricky, and Public Works have noted possible challenges and concerns with snow storage and removal for both options. Regarding stormwater and grading, so the project must follow the rules set by the Carver WMO. Both options do include features like stormwater areas and wetlands and designated outlets, which would be deeded to the city as required to access all the ponds. would be deeded to the city, and access to all the ponds would be created according to city standards. Site utilities, so to provide service to this property, sewer and water will be extended from Marsh Hollow. Additionally, trunk sewer and water extensions are planned to cater the areas situated south of this parcel. And before the development, outside the current city limits can receive any water service. Well number 6 must be completed and permitted for use by the DNR, and the developer is aware of that timeline and coordination with this task. And one last slide here, just a reminder that the sketch plat process is intended for input for the applicant's consideration and feedback. So tonight, we're just looking for the commission to engage in discussion and provide input on the aspects listed here on the screen. And the staff and applicants can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Jen.
Yes.
Does the applicant wish to speak at this time?
Hello, Commissioners. Matt Pavick again. We are excited to get your feedback on our project here tonight. We've been working with staff for a number of months, fine-tuning the different options for the development. And so, again, we're eager to hear what you have to say, make sure that we can make this the best project that we can, and get the community input needed to do so. So we're here for any questions. We also have a representative from Real Estate Equities here if there's any questions about the apartment site. But then I can stand for any questions on the different layouts and the pros and cons of each. So happy to do that.
Thanks. I'll now open the floor for public comment. Is there anyone in the chambers this evening who wish to comment on this item? If so, speak at the podium and state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, I will now open the floor for the Planning Commission to discuss. Commissioners, any questions or comments?
Would it be helpful if I went back to maybe option A and you can review and discuss?
That's fine.
Yeah?
All right, first question. Has Fire Chief Hager reviewed both options A and B, and does he have a preference on either? Because to me, it looks like there's one access point for like 400 people until the southern end gets built up. And that seems like a lot for one access road.
For option A.
Well, both of them were the same street.
Well, one has a through street. Option B has a through street all the way around.
Yeah, my understanding is that Chief Hager had more heartburn with the mini roundabout piece and the cul-de-sac piece just for turnaround. So option B was his preference.
Okay.
And again, both of these have been through our whole development review team, which is planning, engineering, public works, planning, fire.
Did Public Works feel the same way about B too?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest issues with option A was just the storage of snow piece and the sidewalks were the biggest issues.
And in regards to option B, there was the right of way. I thought it was 70 was the preferred, but 60 is what it.
60 is our typical, and they're proposing 40.
Okay, so I just misremember what I read. So that's fairly significant. What was the feedback from the fire chief and our staff in terms of that constraint?
Sure, Commissioner, I would say that there is some heartburn regarding that. The smallest we have gone down to the city before and approved is 50. So our city engineer is a little hesitant on that piece because there's some issues that impact that, but we're still working with the developer on the right-of-way piece of it.
And so along that lines, so there would be considerations for widening that, which would reduce the number of properties potentially, and
That and
not getting any decisions, but That's kind of one thought pattern.
Yeah, and typically we like to see sidewalks on both sides of the street too. This does kind of impact that piece. But if you can see in the screen here, there's not, I mean, it's a pretty tight development, so that it is walkable. It just depends on if we have a preference on doing sidewalks on both sides of the street. And I believe there's a temporary exit that is being discussed too during the construction piece of it, so they can get in and out with fire and safety.
Yes, we're working with the developer to the south to look at that option, if there needs to be a temporary. This is also going to be a phased development that's going to happen over a number of years. And the development to the south may start to develop, in the midst of that, which would help relieve any of that pressure off the single access off of Highway 11. And then just to talk a little bit about the 40-foot right-of-way, where that came from, the concept. So as this evolved, we were looking at this kind of style, which is option A, which has kind of got a public street right-of-way and then private drives that are shared. And so that's one kind of way to develop this site, is kind of starting with the roads on the center and working outwardly. The other way is to loop the site with the units and then kind of leave the open space on the inward side. So that's kind of the main differences between the two. Option B requires a narrower right-of-way as an alternative to maybe a more traditional private street, which would be pretty common in a lot of other townhome type developments. So what we're trying to do is to create a public version of a private street, where it's going to be just kind of the bare minimum that you need to still be publicly owned and maintained. And we're working with staff because we think we can solve that problem, solve those concerns through maybe there's some different creative ways to do snow removal as on the private side, or some easements that give access for repairs to sewer and water that just create that space that we need through there without overly widening, the face-to-face dimensions between the units, because we were trying to get a more cozy urban type of a streetscape through these units with option B. That's also part of the reason for the sidewalk on the single side, because there isn't a lot of distance just to walk across a narrow road to get to a single sided public sidewalk. So that's kind of some of the thoughts on that. But we're again working with staff closely, and we know it's not a typical thing that's been done in the city, so we're open to ideas and work with them to help solve the concerns.
So I personally don't like option A. Because if you're coming in off the cul-de-sac, and even if you got to get a fire truck down that private driveway, to the end unit or whatever, it's just, to me, very, very tight and to get equipment down there. Unless for some reason you're going to sprinkle all these houses, which I doubt. Because that's just a long distance to get a truck down there in a narrow, whatever street width that is. I mean, and then, multiple trucks, and you're in a hurry, you got cars parked somewhere or whatever. It's, I think for safety reasons, option B to me makes more sense as through like a through street all the way around. They don't have to drive through the businesses or whatever to get in and out. My other question is, I know you got the pathway going on underneath the railroad tracks, or is it over the railroad tracks?
No, so there is an existing farm crossing right there. So what we were exploring is, can we just convert that to a trail pedestrian crossing so that we can have access through there? We've asked the question. We're working through that. We don't know if the railroad will get on board with that option or not. We also, of course, have the regional trail that's already set up on 11.
Right.
So that's the main one. If we want to do a secondary, call it a inter-neighborhood connection, we thought it was a good idea maybe, but we're gonna have to see how that.
I know where that railroad crossing is.
Yeah.
I used to snowmobile across it, so
Oh, okay.
back when there were snowmobile trails through there. But again, it's farm traffic, snowmobile traffic versus people, and
Yeah.
I don't know that the railroad's gonna want any. All I can say is good luck.
Yeah.
Railroads aren't fun to work with. I just know from even working in the underground industry that putting an underground gas line underneath a railroad track, they're like, nope. They don't want anything in there right away. And if they can get rid of it, they'd like to get rid of it. So, otherwise, I mean, I liked what the concepts that you got going. I mean,
What is there any, in option B, is the only parking, I see a couple little parking lots along looks like the west side, there's a little like 5-spot lot, like there wouldn't be any parking in the streets in there?
Correct.
Or would
So
there?
there is no, because of the 24-foot width, we would do no parking on the street. Plus the driveways are so close together, you really can't park there anyway. But every unit has 2 parking stalls right in front of it in the driveway. So there is space for every
There's
unit to have
2-car garage and then
Yep.
2 spots that a
Correct.
car would fit?
Yep, and then we try to add just some other auxiliary. If somebody has a party and they've got 5 people over, they can use one of the common space parking areas.
And is the apartment building, that has covered parking?
Yep,
Underneath
underground
it?
parking under the full footprint of the building,
Okay.
up to a certain count. I don't remember exactly what that count is. It might say it on the plan there.
129, is that right?
And
Yep.
storage, is there storage lockers as well in that, or?
Yep, maybe, we have a representative here that could get into the specifics, but I would generally say yes, they're gonna have storage units within the apartment site.
And did you say all of the townhomes have 2-car garage?
Yes.
And then all the apartments, what is the configuration, thoughts of the apartments? How many, are they 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom? Don't know.
I'd have to defer to Blaine on that one.
Good evening, commissioners. We would have about 25% 1 beds, 50% 2 beds, and 25% 3 beds, give or take. And then typically for storage lockers, we would just have, kind of cage lockers in front of parking stalls.
Right.
That'd be available for rent.
And for the different levels of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, are the covered parking stalls kind of commensurate with the size of them? It's a 3 bedroom, is it you get 2, and a 2 bedroom you get 1 covered, or what was the thought?
No, so all of the garage spaces would be available for rent,
Got it.
and there wouldn't be any, different rate based on bed size.
Got it.
That would be based on then first come, first serve, or a rotating basis.
First come, first
Thereafter.
serve.
What is the impervious on this site compared to the our regulation on impervious? Do you know?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I know that overall it's well below the required max because we have so much green space.
And these are
the
just,
center.
there's just like creeks. There's not standing water ponds on that site right now.
Right now, there is not. There's wetland on the very southwest triangle. There's wetland, and there's a creek along the northeast property line, and then we're proposing 2 ponds to service the entire project.
And option B also has more of that green space in the central, the common green, compared to option A, which impacts the impervious.
Right.
So are the ponds considered part of the parkland dedication areas, or would that be
No.
their holding ponds? So probably thinking paying the assessed payment
Yes,
rather
correct.
than a
Yep.
park
Yep.
itself.
There are some public trails that we're proposing through here that we may talk about as a public benefit, but generally the land dedication, we're thinking a fee here is more appropriate.
There was another question about buffer to the north. In some of the notes that I read, Could you speak to that? I think that there were some on the other side, and one of the responses was, well, could you explain what that is? And
Sure.
a little bit more on that.
So on the other side, when we developed that, we constructed a large berm across the back half. You can kind of see the space there between the residential units and the train track. And on this side of the railroad, there's already a natural big wooded slope that you can see there, kind of clouded on the rendering here. That is, there's a big elevation change where we're higher than the track. So putting another berm in wouldn't serve a purpose. It would just take up land. And we think that existing natural treed slope provides enough of a buffer. We've also noticed there's a couple of spots like where there's a bare spot where we're showing the trail connection. But there we're just proposing to do some heavier landscaping, maybe a smaller berm, just something to try to help buffer that gap. And then the other piece of that is, as we've seen, the train activity here, it's pretty infrequent, and it's not as big of a concern as maybe it was thought to be at the time of the development of the parcel to the north, in our opinion. So we just think it's an adequate to go with the natural buffer here.
And then my last question is, you said something about I have two. The little end roads down at the end, those would be private. The kind of more circular one, that would be the public. But kind of on the west end down by the pond, that would be private? Am I understanding a few of those little extenders?
On option B, everything you see would be public except the two on the west, those two kind of drives for the two buildings, and then that little T-shaped one on the east would be private.
Last question, you said it could be phased. So do you have a sense for apartment buildings first, townhomes first?
The idea right now is that it would be the townhomes would be in 3 phases, every year or so. And the apartment will be potentially under construction in 2025 would be the soonest it would start. Yeah. So, and that's dependent on some funding, some things that has to happen for that apartment project to go. But we would propose the main collector road being built into the site to a point where we could accommodate service for the first phase of the townhomes, and then potentially that first access point into the apartment to get them under construction, and then time phase 2 to probably complete the collector road to the south, something like that. But those are all details that we'll work out as we fine-tune the schedules for the apartment.
Commissioner Sikora, I do have just an update on the impervious surface. So in the R4, the max is 75% per unit and 55 per the whole development, but we have not gotten to exact numbers with what they're working on right now. But as of now, it doesn't look like they're exceeding that.
What is the number of train passes there?
Well, it depends. It's seasonal, so they do a lot of grain hauling. So it's more frequent kind of in the fall. And I think MnDOT has a number, and it's like 3 trains per day, something like that.
Day, night, doesn't matter, anytime?
It's 24 hours. Yep, it can happen anytime. And so it's just one of those things. I've been out there a lot as we've been developing the site to the north. I've seen 1 train. And that's totally anecdotal, but it's just not that. It's kind of, I think it's kind of neat. So it's better than being, say, backed up to a highway or a freeway or something where you're constantly having activity. It's just kind of, there's a train, so it's I think it's, the 40-foot setback that we're proposing there, we think is more than enough to make sure people don't feel like the train's coming in their living room.
When you worked on the development to the north, so you had a chance to deal with the train situation. And I know we went through retaining walls, fences, berms, and probably every other thing possible. The only thing that I would think might come about would be somewhere within the existing woods, a fence to just keep the random 3-year-old from running out the backyard through all the way down in the into the woods, random dog or something of that nature. And you're correct. I believe there was something like an average of 3 per day at peak, which just kind of stuck in the back of my head. You guys work with the Chaska Creek Watershed District at all for the other? So you know we pretty much adhere to whatever they advise. So as long as you get the thumbs up from them in that area, we're usually pretty adherent to what they would like to do and don't deviate too often from their recommendations.
Yes, we're expecting that. And here we're actually going to be looking into a little bit more of a fine look at potential water reuse on these ponds.
Okay.
Because we have a definite homeowners association type situation here. So I think it could be a good candidate to do that and work with the staff to figure out how to implement that with a public pond, because these ponds will end up being dedicated to the city afterwards. So that is something we're considering.
So in terms of the apartment building, I know we've been asking this a lot with other ones. Is there any thought for EV charging in part of them? Has that been a topic of discussion?
I would imagine it is. Blaine, do you want to talk about what you guys typically do for EV charging?
We don't have a set number of EV charging stations that we typically provide. We have done it in 3 different developments. Typically, we would put it in the garage. We don't want someone coming off the street onto our property and charging. But we have done it in the past, but haven't given it full consideration here. Okay. We do build to Minnesota Green Community Standards and Energy Star. So we, recycle construction materials, low flow water fixtures, low VOC, paints and adhesives. So a number of sustainable elements.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that gets into programming down the road, but we like to consider ourselves an active type of a community and trying to do more on the EV side and bicycles and all that sort of stuff, so people have a spot to store that, just, for future reference.
Is that road, that entrance, one right in, right out? You can't go across and turn left out of there?
That's correct. That's the master plan, is for that to be a right in, right out only with a center median. The full access will come off the commercial property to the south.
And there was some guidance that it be that way coming from DOT or the county. And
Correct.
to remember.
Yep.
I'm like Commissioner Coons. I like the visual of option B better.
Seems like you can move a lot more in it, traffic-wise and access points.
I'm a fan of B. Maybe you can squeeze the common green sidewalk through the middle. Some of the, the townhomes tight. I don't know. It's because then you start getting into side yard setback situations.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to come up with some different ways to be creative on front yard setbacks and rear yard setbacks. So I know that this is tight on the way things are being built.
Option B lets you widen the street in that green space. You could kind of shrink that all. Make those streets a little bigger by squeezing those green spaces down.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just brainstorming with you. Because no one's going to get behind any of those places to do any work.
It's just for,
It just,
Plan.
yeah.
it's for,
It's a informal dog park.
Run the football in the back in the summer and whatever. Quick question, just in terms of square footage of the townhomes, approximately?
Did we submit that? Yeah, I don't think we have that really nailed down. I mean, there are 3 4-bedroom type townhomes. But we're still working through those designs.
I guess if I, oh, sorry, go on.
are you thinking full basements or
Most I think would be slab on grade.
Slab on
Some will be, some of the grading and the land sets up for walkouts. So there'll be some of that. It'll be a mixture. I think one of the things I think I'd like to just point out, with regard to the green space and the usability of the units, is what we really like about option B is just the livability of the unit. When you're living there looking out your back window, which is what you're doing 90% of the time, what are you seeing? And I think this layout, you don't really have situations where you have somebody looking right back at you. So it seems like it's a good layout for that purpose. You're overlooking green space. You're overlooking a natural wooded area, a train track. You're looking at ponds. There's going to be a berm on the south side by the commercial areas. So just from a livability standpoint, we do like that better. Option B is fine. It works too. But just from if I had to live in a unit, I'd rather live in one of these with more open space in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And have a tighter street, if there's a trade-off. The street part, I think, is something that we like to try to continue to push on narrowing that infrastructure, be more efficient so we can enjoy the space on the extremities. So.
We talked about the buffer for the south, or is that something we're not dealing with until we start construction on other stuff down there?
Yes, so our understanding of the ordinance is that the higher intensity use is required to put a buffer in to buffer from the lower intensity use. So and correct me if I'm wrong on any of that, we're kind of relying on that will happen as the southern piece gets developed. They'll be required to put a berm in.
Fair enough. The only other thing that I would possibly recommend would be along that north end, and I know it doesn't buy you anything, doesn't help out with your revenue, but that's a lot of places for no guests to come parking by. And if I got, my kids driving a car now I got 3 cars. This one parks down here. You can't park on the street. If there's a way to squeeze in a few different off-street parking options, I think it would be a good thing for the neighborhood. If you can.
On that, do you have a number in mind?
Not at all. I'm just and
like this one on the south side. You've got the inside part that has 6 rows on the bottom, where there's how many stalls next to it? Like 10 on the left. Like somewhere up above that, if 2 of those could be push off one side and create a parking spot in there, maybe.
Yeah, we tried to kind of cluster some on the west end, and then a few in the middle.
It does seem like there's a
Some on
void
the
of
east.
parking in that.
well, I'm just saying,
you could probably add 2 next to that pathway that goes,
yeah, maybe the path
To
doesn't
the-
happen.
you got 2 on one side of the pathway. It looks like 2 or 3 by the clubhouse
Oh yeah.
through street. You put couple on the other side, maybe. They got the clubhouse side up there, cover that. And that looks like, is there some on the other, like the pathway going towards,
We were showing, I believe, a couple to the east side of that,
yeah,
in that gap there. And we could put more in the gaps between the units potentially. It might just start to look a little,
right, look,
yeah. So, but it's a good note, and so we'll endeavor to get as many as
We're
we
just
can.
chatting.
Yeah, yeah.
What is the separation between, so there's a separation between the sixes, is that required or just by design?
Yeah, we have a 20-foot building separation.
They have to
shown.
be that number?
They don't have to. I don't know what code is. I think building code would let you get down to 10 from like a fire perspective.
Got it.
But there's going to be planning.
Yeah, typically we don't
questions.
allow more than 12 on private drives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like option B better.
Yeah.
If I haven't said it.
this request doesn't require us to take any action tonight. So, any other discussion?
One last one on Christian's point about the little kids running through the woods to the train tracks or the dogs. Is there, on the other side, you got the berm, but there's no,
No,
Structure.
There's no fence or anything. I think the way the discussion unfolded, as I recall, was okay. Let's say you have a berm and then you have a fence on the other side. What if the kid climbs over the fence and then you can't? You got to rescue the kid. You got to climb over the fence. Like there's so many possible ways it could get circumvented that it felt.
I think we had like the railroad people or guy was on. He's like, we don't want a fence next to it.
Yeah.
It provides nothing and is more dangerous. And yeah,
Yeah,
But-
and there's things we can do too with, on some of those units if it feels like they're too close to, it's a big slope, that goes down there as well. That's a wooded slope. So there may be some additional vegetation or hedge or something that we might put along there to make it, maybe it's more of a natural barrier to keep people from going too far, but we'll take a note of that too.
thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate the feedback. Thanks.
thank you.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
in along with the preliminary.
Now move on to our last item this evening. Our final item for discussion this evening is item 3.3, public hearing for 1486 Steyer Lake Lane, Victoria Veterinary Clinic. This item does include a public hearing. I will now turn it over to Associate Planner Will Boucher for an overview.
Thank you, Chair. The public hearing for conditional use permit for 1486 Steger Lake Lane for the veterinary clinic was advertised, posted, and mailed for the Planning Commission's review on January 2nd. After a staff meeting with the applicants, we have determined that additional time was necessary for review, and the public hearing was postponed until January 16th. Due to the holidays, the newspaper could not properly be notified for the public hearing on January 16th. Because of this, staff are proposing the Planning Commission open the public hearing and continue it to the next meeting. At that meeting, staff will prepare the staff report and presentation for consideration by the Planning Commission. The staff recommend a motion to continue to open the public hearing tonight, allow anyone in audience to speak on it, and then we'd ask for a motion to table it to the next meeting on January 16th.
Thank you. I will now open the public hearing. I will ask for a motion or open the public hearing at this time. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this item? Please state your name and
Hello. Yep, I'm Jessica Radke Maltez. My address is 1120 Grove Circle in Victoria. Just came in tonight because I'm the veterinarian that's trying to start this project for the 1486 Steiger Lake Lane. So, but it sounds like they didn't quite get all the communication done. So I don't know if there's any question anyone had, but basically, I own the Victoria Veterinary Hospital, and then we purchased which is currently located off Highway 5 near the Dairy Queen, and we purchased this 1486 Steiger Lake Lane with the intention to move the hospital over there. So, big bonuses of moving the hospital over there is that we're going to have like 44 parking spaces for the hospital, and we're going to have more space to continue just doing our work for the community. And the building that is there is an existing structure, so we're going to be remodeling and doing a small addition onto it. It's not going to be anything too much disturbing, that lot or that space. So, yeah, I think that was just maybe I just want to introduce those details on the project. It should solve a lot of our problems and clients' concerns about our facility, mostly the parking issues that we have at the current location. And I'm just happy to still be able to keep doing business in Victoria and keep doing my job here. So that's the hope, is that we can make this project, just be able to get everything done we need to get done for that building and be able to be working in it at the end of the year. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we won't be really doing any discussion on it tonight. Sure. We'll wait till the 16th. It's just because it was published in the meeting or in the paper, we have to go ahead and open the public hearing. So we'll look forward to seeing what you've got presented to staff on the 16th.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Hearing any other discussion? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Noelle Miller. I'm a 22-year resident of Victoria and a 4-year employee of Victoria Veterinary Hospital. I just wanted to say that I feel that this project would benefit our community in ways that people don't even really understand. Oftentimes people have to drive great distances to have tests done for their pets, and being able to have a bigger facility and being able to have more veterinarians and other people working in the facility allows more people to be serviced here. Oftentimes there are pieces of equipment, for example, that we don't have in our current facility for tests that people go all the way to the University of Minnesota to have a test done. And there might be something that we can save our community residents from having to go so far with their sick pets. And that's something that I think would be really beneficial. So I feel fortunate because I know what a great steward of animal health Dr. Jessica is. I am not a medical professional. That's not my job, but I've watched her help so many people in this community, and I feel like this project would be something that would really benefit everyone who has a pet in this community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to table this item to our next meeting on January 16th.
I'll make a motion to table this item till our next meeting on the 16th.
I'll second that.
A motion made by Commissioner Sikora, second by Commissioner Ream. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. We will now continue the public hearing on January 16th. And that concludes this discussion item for the evening. Moving on to the miscellaneous section of our agenda. Staff, is there any miscellaneous items?
None from staff.
Okay. Any commissioners?
Nope.
The only thing I have is we are looking for people to join the Planning Commission. If you're interested and would like to come learn about the city and help develop the city, we're always great group to work with, and staff is always has everything put together for us, so it's not a tough job. So if you're thinking about it, put your name in, and we'd be happy to bring you on board. Commissioners, hearing that there's no more items this evening, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Commissioner Macias, second by Commissioner Sikora. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. We are now adjourned.